Hi, welcome to this session about killing giants. I am Branislav. I am a product engineer at Platform SH, and my job is to do Drupal things, but a little bit of Node.js things too. And my main job is to ensure that our recurring billing platform does not die in a slow and terrible death. I am a father and a family guy, and I am a cat herder. And this presentation is going to be delivered in a terrible accent due to the fact that I was born in a country that does not exist anymore, to a Hungarian mother and Bosnian Montenegrin father, and the country disappeared, and every single leftover country decided to have their own language, and they all have different accents. I continued living in Serbia until I moved to Germany and started working for an English-speaking yet French company with a bunch of people from all around the world. So yeah, bad accent is included, and I love it. So who are you? Let's talk about your things. Who here works on a really old Drupal 7 project or 6 project? Oh my God. Who hates their work? So, who works on a big project, like big, greasy, big, terribly big functional project, right? And yes, so you are at the right session. And let's start with this thought exercise, right? So you have an idea for a startup, for a big project. You think it's going to, disrupt the market and do whatever as a service, And you are like PHP programmers. Who here is a full stack whatever programmer here? Whatever programmers? Okay, so you are a bad audience because yeah, you're going to see. So yes, you have a free choice of technology for your new project. What are you going to choose? Who's like for Drupal 8? Come on, don't be shy. You're a Drupal conference. So who's going to do something else? Symfony. Hands up? No? Node.js. Okay, people don't like Node.js here, right? So who's going to do Java? Nobody. Okay, so some of you are going to try Go because Go is in. Who is into Go? Only one person. Come on, Go is awesome. Okay, so you're going to choose some, and who's going to go full-blown microservices right away? One person. Come on, microservices. So yeah, basically, when you're considering technology, you're considering things that are so 2019, right? And that's awesome because we are having this thought exercise. We're building a new project. However, we're usually building projects that were built in 2012. We're just trying to make them not die in terrible death. And so somebody else made decisions about technology that was to be used back then. And what was the cutting edge of 2011? Drupal 7. Drupal 7 was awesome. Drupal 7 was huge. It was amazing. It had all those things like hook system. Who loves hook system? One shy person there. Yeah, I loved it, and now I hate it. And we had this monolithic architecture. Who loves monoliths? I love monoliths. I mean, really, I love them. However, when monoliths grow, they become really nasty. And even if our business succeeded after 8 years of development, we have accumulated knowledge, and we were not sitting on our thumbs during those 8 years. We were actually, developing things, and now we have this huge beast that's, and we learned to love that beast because, we grew with the beast, and it's our monolith. It's our crappy piece of code, and we love it. And our customers love it too, because they're using the platform, right? And everything is awesome, everything is amazing, but there are 2 problems. First one is accumulated technical debt. And another one is, well, we have this problem of Drupal 7 end of life coming real soon, right? So in November of 2021, Drupal 7 will come to an end. Now that's more than 2 years. Who thinks more than 2 years is more than enough time to change the project or update the project? I don't, because I know how big the project is. It's awesome. So we spent 8 years developing the thing. Now we have to redesign it, make it better, make it blah, 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 and making Drupal 8. And we do not want to make same mistakes, right? Because our Drupal 7 project resulted in technical debt. Now, of course, where are like the weak points of Drupal 7? So you're abusing your hook system. You are, just try to imagine the situation. You're loading a user object from the database, right? So it's a simple thing, show me the user. But then again, you have like all those custom modules that have all those ways of interacting with your code. So from the time you're loading the data, the raw data from the database, to the time you're displaying that data to a user, it's totally different object. And you have no idea who changed it, how it was changed. It is terrible. So it is super terrible for new colleagues that just started working on your big monolith. And you know all the details, but they don't. And really, the thing that happens is, together with like really slow and terribly painful onboarding of new colleagues, you start having regressions because you didn't test your code in 2011. And it was super difficult for you to test the code that changes state so much. So, how can you unit test a Drupal 7 project? Who does that? And your velocity is going down, your bugs are going up, and you end up with a game of Mikado, really. Your job is to maintain a software while, you're trying not to collapse all the other pieces. And Martin Fowler in 2007 was talking about design stamina hypothesis. And it goes like this. So basically, you're starting a new project. You have two ways, fast way and the right way. And you're going to choose the fast way because you want to go to the market as soon as possible. You want to disrupt the market. You want to be rich and famous and everything. Drupal 7 is a perfect candidate for that. And after some time and some growth, you're going to start feeling problems. And this no design line is precisely that. The lines that you're showing, like, okay, my velocity is going down. And if I made the good design choices in 2012 to 11, I wouldn't be there, but I am. So here we are. We are at the point when we know for a fact that we are struggling with bad design. Who is with their projects at this point? I am. One person. Everybody else is shy. So we want to replace the giant, right? And we are replacing the giant the Drupal way. The Drupal way means, you're going to build a new version of the software. Drupal 8, for example. Then you're going to write your migration scripts. You're going to test your migration scripts. This is going to be a huge project, right? And then, at a certain point of time, you're going to close the old site for the maintenance. You're going to run the migrations, ensure all the data is properly migrated or the users are properly migrated. And then you're going to update the DNS to just start serving from the old new version of the site. Is this the right choice? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? The rest of you are sleeping. There is a problem though, of course. You have a big project. You have a giant project. And do you really want to design a giant project from the ground up? There are some risks associated with the entire process. What if you make wrong design choices, right? So, and the data is really terribly complex because it's a huge monolith, right? And the data migration problems are kind of rising too. And really, do you really want to shut down your entire website while you're running migrations and just stop serving your users? What are they going to do? There is also a problem of humans. So we've planned terribly. And we tried doing projects the proper way, right? Which is, what's the name of it? Waterfall? So you would basically start developing a feature, and you planned well, and you're developing this huge thing, and once you're done, you're going to release it, and that's the first graph. I don't have the laser pointer because I didn't come here prepared. So bear with me. And that's the old way of managing projects. And the new way of managing projects is frequently releases, like agile, right? So who's here doing agile? So sprints and frequent releases, right? And how do you really do agile with redeveloping the entire project from the scratch? Does anybody have an idea? Please, come on, don't leave me alone here. Yes, I see one head there. Sorry? So the question is, how do you do agile redevelopment of a project from the scratch, of a big project? Is there an option to do that? Yes? But how do you frequently release a new version of the project, redevelop new version of the project? And this is the session I want to hold today. So, the thing you mentioned is called the strangler application pattern. And believe it or not, it was invented in 2004 or even earlier. There's this guy called Martin Fowler. Who knows about Martin Fowler? Not that many people. You have to get off the PHP island a little. This is a Java guy. So he basically described a system that allows you to gradually create a new system around the edges of the old system, and then let it, suffer and die slowly while you're building this new system, right? And it was inspired by strangler figs in Australia and Queensland. So basically, this is a tree which has these strangler figs hanging from it, and they are slowly letting their roots fall to the ground and then root into the ground, and then they start growing around the old tree. And they grow until they strangle it and suffocate it. And then the old tree is dead, and the new tree is like this beautifully shaped thing around what's basically a hole. So he was inspired by this, and he blogged about it, and then everybody started, working on that idea. So Kyle Brown in 2017 on an IBM development portal defined 3 stages of strangler application pattern. So first you're going to transform, which means create a parallel new website. Second step, you're going to coexist. So a parallel new website is going to start growing, start picking up the features from the previous website, and the old version of the website is going to start dying. And once you move all the features to the new website, you're just going to eliminate the old functionality. You're just going to delete the project. And then Michiel Rock, if I correctly pronounce this, in 2016 writes about the practical example of strangler pattern. So he introduces the idea of a proxy. Now, you have a proxy, which proxies the traffic, and all the traffic goes to the old website, right? This is the old website, the monolith. And then the proxy just does the same thing. Now, then you start building services. You start building small service, and once you're done with that, you're just telling the proxy, okay, for this particular URL, just serve from the new website, right? Do not serve from the old website. Now, if you're thinking that proxy is super complicated, it's not. Proxy is nothing more than just an Apache server, htaccess, and you're done. So basically, you're telling this, for this URL, go to the new microservice thingy, and for all the rest of the URLs, go to the old thing. And you're done. It's super. Now you can actually build your services, and you can go totally, microservice, and once your monolith, all the features were moved from the microservices from the monolith to the microservices, you're just going to kill the monolith and you're done. So this makes sense, right? Who thinks this doesn't make any sense? This is a trick question. All the sleepers are going to think like they're going to agree with me. So yeah. So when will this not work? It will not work for, well, non-web projects. And because we are all web developers, just be free to ignore that fact. It will not work if you don't have a standardized URL structure. So basically, you have to have this brainless Apache server, which just reads the URLs and then decides where to direct. And if you don't have that kind of URL structure, well, basically, you're screwed. And you really need a consistent UI. Think about this. You're developing a project, and you have that like old version of the project with really bad old UI, and then you have a new version of the project with this amazing new UI. And then people who are using your project in transitional periods, they think they're using two products. They don't have this amazing, beautiful experience, right? And finally, do you really want to use this to replace one big monolith with another? So, of course, if you're using like corporate websites or building something moderately big, you can just replace Drupal 7 with Drupal 8. But if your service grew so much that you want to, have multiple teams, every team maintaining one single thing, then you probably do not want only one monolithic Drupal 8. Which is one of the advantages of this entire thing, right? Another one is zero downtime, because now you have like beautiful way to just switch traffic here or there, and you can make it with practically no downtime. And because you have frequent releases, you really reduced the risk of the failure, because if you fail, only small part of your project is going to fail, and then you're going to fix only that small part of the project. And now that you have multiple services, and every single service can be maintained by its own team, now you don't have to, worry about people, destroying each other's work. And you can actually do something amazing, and we talked about it in the beginning. For every single part of your project, for every single domain of your project, you can decide the best possible technology. That actually means that, well, I'm going to show you what that means. And a whole new world of possibilities is going to be opened for you. Consider this. You want to refactor your big project, but you're not really sure about how people are using your old, well, big project, and you're not really, you want to measure their, how your product is being used. What do product users like about your project, what not? It's super complicated. It's not impossible, but it's super complicated with a monolithic Drupal 7. And you always did something else, and you didn't really focus on that particular problem. So once you introduce the proxy, you can actually ensure that proxy, just together with proxying the request to monolith, just logs requests and responses for your users. Now you have this elk stack or whatever. Now it's not elk stack, now it's called elastic stack. And it would just collect the data. And then you can analyze the data, you can decide what do you want to refactor first, etc., etc. So it's an interesting opportunity. Another one interesting opportunity is something that's not a buzzword anymore. It's a reality, decoupled frontend. Who does decoupled frontends here? Not that many people, so it's still a buzzword. Now, decoupled frontend kind of solves the problem of inconsistent and outdated UI. Think about this. So you want to build a new UI for the project, and you want to rebuild the project as a microservices. What are we going to do first? Well, let's first introduce the proxy. And then let's update our monolith with APIs. Let's API-ize everything, from every single thing that was consumed using the front end can be relatively easily produced with converted into APIs using RESTful modules, using services, etc. Who uses RESTful or services module here in Drupal 7? So you know what I'm talking about. It's super simple to expose entities in APIs. Now you're going to use Swagger PHP to document your APIs, which is awesome because now you can have annotations above your methods, and in those annotations you're going to describe every single parameter you have and every single whatever you have, and it's going to be working for super. Now, why is that important? Because once you start migrating to microservices, you really want to aggregate all the documentation to the same place for every single service. So what you're going to do next is you're going to add this OpenAPI 3 documentation as an aggregate of all the documentations for every single service, and currently you have only one service, monolith, beneath. So it's going to stay there. Now, there is a good benefit for this. Now your big project has APIs, and now your marketing people and sales people can sell those APIs. Now, even though we are doing refactoring, we are having new features in the beginning of our project, which is awesome. This is a good thing for managers to be sold to. Who here is a manager? One manager. So I'm selling to you. And now you can do something amazing. You have old, crappy application, Drupal 7 application. It's big, it's huge, you love it, but it's crappy. You have this intermediary service, which is the proxy, and you have APIs, everything is API. Now you can decouple the front end entirely. This actually does not mean only decoupled front end, it also means decoupled front end team. From now on, your front-end team does not have to do anything with Drupal. No more twigs and things and PHP templates and whatever. These guys are now doing their job. They're doing their Reacts, their Vues, their Angulars, or whatever is today interesting for front-end people. And now you have the infrastructure to hide the monolith entirely. Whatever you do with the monolith, nobody else sees it. You're hidden. And every single new version of, new container is going to be RESTful API. It's an interesting idea, right? So the next thing you can do is, and you already noticed that we added some logic to our proxy. Now proxy is not stupid Apache router anymore, or AJ proxy or whatever. Now proxy can become something more. It can become a caching system. So it can also consolidate various APIs. So think about this. You want to have GraphQL, you want to have RESTful APIs beneath. You have some old services that are like SOAP APIs or whatever, and you also want to have authentication layer. Everything is beneath the proxy, and you want to unify all those different APIs to a single thing, because then it's easier for your front-end developers, but it's also easier to sell the unified API as a product. So the proxy is not going to be proxy anymore, it's going to be middleware. Now middleware is going to accept only GraphQL because GraphQL is cool, it's 2019 of course, and that's the only way you're going to consume your service. Now middleware is going to convert those GraphQLs into other formats if needed. And in order to do that, you have to develop the middleware, you have to work on middleware, and that's, again, a new team. And what's awesome about this approach is now you're moving all the caching from the services to the middleware. Middleware is the only, well, not the only caching layer, but it's the most important caching layer for all the reverse proxy things, etc. But what's also important now, because middleware is stateless application, totally stateless application. And the only state it has is cache, which can be rebuilt anytime. You can move the middleware as close to the edge as possible. So you can spin out a new server, a new relatively cheap server in the United States, in South America, in Europe, in Asia, Africa, Australia. Who cares? All of them are going to talk to your application which is, maybe in Romania, who cares? And all the caches are going to remain as close to your clients as possible, which of course reduces latency and everything. Another thing you can do is, and I already mentioned it as one of the benefits, you can use, well, now that you have microservices beneath your proxy, you can decide to use the best possible language, framework, whatever, for every single job, for every single domain you're going to have. And if you did not read the book Building Microservices by Sam Newman, do it. It's awesome. How does that work? Well, just imagine this situation. You have this decoupled front end, and then you have proxy, and beneath proxy you have an authentication service, a billing service, a big data service, and content management service. Our CTO told me that you don't really want to use Drupal for authentication or PHP for authentication, and it would be much better if you used Go. I don't know the details. I'm a stupid PHP developer, but you get the point. Somebody knows it. You can do billing using Drupal Commerce too, which is awesome. It's super flexible, it's beautiful, it allows you to build in a lot of data and a lot of functionality. But you cannot really do big data with Drupal, right? For big data, you want to use Python. Why not? Python is awesome for big data. And finally, and I'm going to introduce something really stupid here. Why do you want to use content? Well, if we're talking about a big website, right? Huge, monster, giant. Why do you want to combine content management and billing together? Drupal gives you that opportunity for medium-sized websites. But if you want something bigger, if you want a dedicated content management team, just don't mix those two together. They're different domains. You're going to sell from Drupal 8 billing instance, and you're going to deliver content from Drupal 8 content management instance. Why not? And this is something that we are doing at Platform SH. So let me just show you how Platform SH currently works. Who uses Platform SH here? Who hates us? I'm seeing one hand like this. So yeah, Platform SH is kind of awesome, wonderful, but it was built in 2008-ish or something, so it's old. And we are having this Drupal 7 monolith, which is the thing our users are using to communicate with us, mostly. But every single region where you host your Drupal projects is somewhere else. That somewhere else can be in European Union, it can be in United States, it can be wherever. And every single region has its own UI. So basically, when you want to authenticate, you're going to first talk to our Drupal 7 monolith. Drupal 7 monolith is going to, just authenticate you, and this is just nothing more than OAuth 2. Now, a user does not know where their project is. Maybe it's in America, maybe it's in Europe, wherever. So they first want to go to Drupal 7 website to see where is the project, and Drupal website is going to respond to that. Now, there is an API for this. It's called Location API. And there is also a UI for this, which was developed in Drupal as a theme, nothing more. Now that we know where the project is, we are going to be redirected to it. Now, this is also either UI or an API. We don't care. But basically, the dance is the same. Show me my project. Now, the region has no idea if you are allowed to see a project. So they're going to ask Drupal, who's this guy? And Drupal is going to respond, he's good, right? And US region is going to respond with the project, with details. It's secure, it makes sense. There is a problem. The problem is the front end. You have Drupal theme as one front end, and then every single region, and we are currently maintaining 20-ish regions, has its own front end. That's a lot of various front ends, and that's a lot of work for every single deployment of new features, right? And there is another problem. If Drupal goes down, we cannot authenticate you. All the services are going to go down. This is a bottleneck. This makes our deployments a nightmare, even though we deploy on Fridays. And finally, do we really want you to know that accounts or Drupal 7 monolith is the only, place you have to go in order to find out where's your project. You should just request the project and that's it. So we want to abstract this entire location away. So let's introduce this intermediary API proxy and do the same dance. So authentication remains the same. Drupal is still a monolith, right? And then we are talking to API proxy and we are saying, show me my project. API proxy is going to talk for you with Drupal 7 monolith. Drupal 7 monolith is going to respond where the project is, and then API proxy is going to do all the dance with the regional APIs. It's going to return the project, and API proxy is then going to return the project. This is an additional extra layer of complication, right? It, however, introduced something interesting. Our regions can now be totally headless. We are deleting all the UIs from the regions. Regions are exclusively API-based now. This means less development time for us. Our developers, our front-end developers can now do something else. Drupal 7 monolith is also going to become totally headless. So basically, we are going to expose every single feature we have as an API. We are using a RESTful API module for that. And this actually means that our front-enders do not have to know Drupal 7 and PHP things anymore, right? The only thing where we still have Drupal front-end is just authentication form. Our API proxy is by definition headless. It's just proxying API requests. No big deal. And this gives us ability to maintain decoupled, fully decoupled front-end, right here with Drupal 7. So this is the situation we have, right? We have a situation, we have decoupled front-end, which talks only to one only thing, that's API proxy, and then API proxy is going to do all the talking with current infrastructure, which is regional APIs and Drupal monolith. And now we can start killing Drupal monolith. We are going to develop OAuth server and then move all the OAuth things from Drupal 7. Why is that important? Well, now we can do all the deployments in Drupal 7, and I don't care if Drupal 7 falls for like an hour. I don't care. Your APIs are not going to be working, but you're still going to be authenticated well. Now I can write my own project discovery service. I can write my own billing service. And the best of it, I can choose technology for each of those services. I want to build with Drupal Commerce. I want to make this only small microservice that does project discovery, and it knows where projects are. Super. I want to develop OAuth server in Go, because it has awesome libraries for that. And yes, my EU regions, well, my regions remain the same, and once I'm done with killing the monolith, I'm just going to delete it, right? Now, API proxy became amazingly complicated now, right? So how did I develop API proxy? Well, basically, we already have a Go application that we've developed for some other purpose. So that Go application was already proven to be super efficient. When I'm saying super efficient, I mean every single request you make to a certain platform SH hosted project in a certain region goes through one of 3 Go instances like this, and it still works super fast. Now I'm using that Go application to cache the state. I'm using that Go application to do all the authentication things, etc. I'm protecting all the other services using this particular Go application. And finally, I can move proxy as close to the edge as possible. It sounds perfect. However, it comes with a lot of pain. If you don't have a big enough team, you cannot do this, period. You need to sustain this amount of new moving elements. And if you decide to try some new technology, let's try Java for billing, because Java also has amazing, billing capabilities. But you have only one Java developer, you have a problem. because that Java developer is going to decide to leave, and then you are in big problem. You will especially hurt if you do not plan your application well. What does that mean? That means if you create a tight coupling between services, and then you end up with a service that if it goes down, everything else goes down. For example, if you build your OAuth authentication layer bad, and there are some really big pitfalls there, you might end up with, if my authentication service dies, everything stops. So you have to make sure that your design is right. Good thing is you are postponing design decisions with this approach. So if you end up with services and they're all beautifully decoupled, so if a service dies, well, either other services are going to take over its job if you're having load balancing between multiple services, multiple instances of the same service, or a function, if like the entire service, microservices dies, and then the rest just continues working and you just have reduced functionality of your application, you're good, right? But you have to know about those events, and then you have to ensure that you fix them. And if your application is not dying instantly and terribly, you sometimes can miss that. So you have to monitor your services. And of course, now you have multiple services, you have multiple containers or virtual machines, or even, like bare metal servers if you want. You have to have somebody to maintain them. And that's also a big problem, right? And finally, you want to ensure that whatever you develop and deploy, you develop it fast, you test it good, and you deploy it fast. Now, if you have multiple places to deploy to, then if you don't have a good CI and CD, you are basically in a big problem, and you are going to hurt. Well, you're going to hurt anyways, but you do not really have any alternatives, because you want to kill a giant, and you do not want a new giant, because with new giant, you're going to hurt it even more. You're going to hurt because microservices are complicated. You're going to, however, hurt because microservices are risky. Yes, we still did not try, microservices. No, we did. We are learning on the flight. So really, our job is to minimize the risk. And this approach I talked about today is just one of the ways to do the risk minimization. Thank you. So we have 5 minutes left for questions, comments, and Rotten Tomatoes. I will accept them all. Please, questions? Ideas? I need just, yes, please.
So, how big is the team that's currently supporting the big solution of microservices? There are many teams, but how big is the total set of people?
So we are doing it, so the question is, how many teams do we have currently, right?
How big is the team on average?
And how big are there? So basically, because this entire approach kind of suggests that you start with one big monolithic team and one big monolithic application, and then you start playing with it and kind of deciding who is going to go where depending on the status of the project and how deep are you in this entire transition. So we started with one relatively small team that was maintaining the entire monolith, and we had a lot of problems, and then we started hiring, and they were all in this big project, monolithic project, and then we decided, okay, let's separate several people to start working on the UI only. And because we already had a proxy, and the proxy already worked, we had only one person who would just, tweak a little bit the proxy and ensure that proxy does precisely what we need it to do. And then we had like a bunch of people doing on the APIs on Drupal 7 end, and we had several people working on the UI. Now the UI is also almost complete. Our Drupal 7 application is almost entirely headless, and we have a new team. A new team is doing only authentication. And we started developing a new team that is going to do only data collection. So basically, we need to collect the data about various events that are happening, and we want to ensure that that data is stored properly, displayed properly, and it's a whole set of problems. And basically, we are going to start, like separating one team at a time and slowly moving this to this final thing. And also, this reduces organizational problems, right? And organizational risks, because I have no idea if I'm going to be in this or that team in like 5 years. I don't want to make that decision now. Let's wait for the time that team is necessary. Any more questions, comments? Yes?
How long did it take you to make the transition from the monolithic to the...
Well, at current state of the work, we are like a year and something into the project, because we are also maintaining and building new functionalities in the monolith. And this is also another important thing. This gives you ability to, control the pace of this refactoring project. I'm building new features. I can decide if I want to build new features as separate services. And for us, for example, a separate services was this screenshot feature, which is really stupid. We take screenshots of the sites we are hosting. No big deal. So how do you want to approach that problem? Well, you already have a Node.js application that basically does that. So just spin out a new Node.js service, attach it to this and the entire thing, and you're done. And we still have only one front end. And that's what was developed in a year. We still have this API proxy thingy. And how many years will it take? I don't know. We hope to finish it by the November 2021. More questions? Well, then we are done. Thank you very much.